All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the stages of clay. There's three main stages of clay. The first stage is greenware. This is where the clay is green. That means it hasn't been fired, and it could always be made back into soft, malleable clay. So when we get clay out of the bag, since we buy clay, in the old days they dug up clay and then they mixed things with it. But when we get it out of the bag, it's plastic. You can squish the clay, you can make things out of it. It's very malleable, and it can be made into things like a pinch pot or a bowl or a sculpture. Once that clay has been made into something and it sits and gets a little firm, it becomes leather hard. And so this is clay that has a little bit less moisture in it. It's not as bendable, it's not as plastic. You can still attach things to it and you can still smooth and work on it. The third part of the greenware, so we go from plastic to leather hard to bone dry, this is where all the moisture is out of it. You can see the color has changed. These are all the same clay. But as the moisture goes out and it dries out, the color changes. So if you listen, okay, that's what bone dry clay is like. So if you think about an old dry bone in the desert, it's kind of fragile. There's no moisture left in it. This is what this is. If I drop this, it would break very easily. If I put it into a bucket of water, it would dissolve. These can all be turned back into soft, malleable plastic clay with a little bit of work. Okay, so the first category was greenware. The second category is bisqueware. So if you take a piece of bone dry clay and you fire it, that means you put it in a kiln or a pit or some type of something that's going to heat it up. It's going to turn to bisqueware. Now, the bisqueware that we make in our classroom, we fire to 1,940 degrees. So your oven cooks your food at 400 degrees, sometimes less, sometimes more, but we fire at about 4 times that temperature to 1,940 degrees. So this is an example of bisqueware. So this is the same clay that's been fired now, and you can hear the difference in it. So this is all clay, but once it's fired, it becomes a ceramic material. This does not dissolve again. If I put this in a bucket of water, it could sit there for 20 years and it would still look like this, maybe with moss on it and algae and whatever else, but it would still be the same material when it came out of the bucket of water. Now what we do with this is generally we will finish it off. So if you love the natural finish, it could be done. If you wanted to, you could paint it, which could eventually come off of the piece, or we put glaze on it. And glaze is a material like glass that's mixed with clay, usually has colorants, oxides and things added to it. And then that's refired at a little bit higher temperature in this class, and that becomes glazeware. Okay, so our three categories are greenware, bisqueware, and glazeware. And glazeware is what we consider finished ceramics. If you listen to this one, it's a much higher pitch than this one. And then, of course, our bone dry clay. Okay, so hopefully you have those three categories down.